Hello everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I have a scrapbook layout process video for you, and this month I am honored to be a guest designer for the My Creative Scrapbook kits, and here I'm using the limited edition kit to create this layout. The stencil that you see here, it's a Vicki Boutin stencil, and this came in the kit. And I'm using it on gessoed white cardstock. It's a 120-pound cardstock, and I'm using my dauber to put some distress oxides through the stencil. And I will put everything that I use in the description box, but the colors that I'm using, I'll just let you know, they are carved pumpkin, evergreen bough, aged mahogany, and faded jeans. And my goal is to use the entire paper and cover it all with these distress oxides through the stencil. So I'm just going around and adding color all over the page. And I'm not worrying about the seams. I don't think they'll be noticeable once I use this paper on my page. And I'm just finishing up the page here. And the next thing that I'm going to be doing is going back into the distress oxides and making them look a little bit less neat. So I started by spraying some water onto a few different areas. I've seen a lot of scrapbookers do this recently, and I think it's a great way to bring out the watercolor effect that you can get with distress oxides. So I sprayed a little bit of water around the page with my Tim Holtz sprayer, and you could see that as I'm drying it with the heat tool, it kind of moves the water around, and as the water moves around, the color moves around with it, and it pools up and just gives it the distressed kind of look. And then to add to the distressed look, I'm just putting a few sprinkles of water onto different areas of the page, and that lifts up the color as well. And I'm just trying to get as much variation and interest in this page as possible. Now in that spot, I felt that a little bit too much of the color came up, so I'm putting a little bit of color back in, and then I'm going to go back with the sprinkles and just take a little bit off so it doesn't stand out too much. And now I'm just finishing up with a few more sprinkles of water on the page, and now that that's done, I'm going to be adding some splatters of all the different colors that I used on the background to my page. And I have a glass tabletop that I got from IKEA a couple of years ago, and so I can put the color right down on my table and then clean it up and use some more color. It took me a really long time to get used to this. I used to have a glass mat on my glass table so that I could put out the color, but now I've gotten used to being able to use the table as a palette, and I really enjoy that. So that's why I'm putting the color right on my table. It's glass and it cleans up really easily. And as you can see, just adding a whole lot of really, really tiny splatters to the page. And this evergreen bough, even though it's a green color, it has some blue in it, and it matches really well with the collection that I'm going to be using, which you'll see in a few minutes. And these are some white splatters, and I talk about this all the time, how I love the way white splatters just bring everything together in the background. It just makes everything cohesive. I'm also adding a few black splatters here. The collection has some black in it, and so I thought it would be perfect to add just a little touch of black splatters around the page. And I was happy. Sometimes when I splatter, there's some larger black blobs, but that didn't happen this time, so I was pretty happy with that. So my plan for that piece of pattern paper is to cut it into the shape of a leaf. So I decided to make a template using a piece of cardstock and this image from the internet. I just Googled leaves and looked at the images, and I thought this was a pretty one. So now I'm just doing my best to try to cut it out. I'm sorry, to draw it so I can cut it out and make my paper into a leaf shape. So then I go ahead and I cut that out, making some adjustments as I'm cutting. And once I have that cut out, I'm going to be tracing around it on my paper. And you could see that I just adjusted the stem so it would just go in one direction, and tracing around the outside with my pencil on the back. And this paper, this is a 120-pound paper, as I mentioned. This is pretty heavy paper, so it takes me a bit of time to cut through it. It's not bad when I'm cutting the straight areas, but when I start getting into the curvy parts, it did take a bit of time to work through the cutting through of that paper. So now I'm going around the outside. I always like to make sure there's contrast in my layouts, and I like the different parts to contrast so that they'll be clear and so that things will pop. So I picked the darkest color, which is the aged mahogany, and I just use my dauber and I spread it around the outside of my leaf. Next, I'm using my scissors to distress the edges of the leaf, and you can use a distress tool. I have one of those as well. I have the Tim Holtz one, but because there's so many curves and dips in this one, I thought that using my scissors would be a little bit easier. And now I'm just going around and kind of adding to the distress and bending the paper in some of the areas and just trying to get it to look distressed as possible. And now I'm going around yet again with my dauber to make it even a little bit darker for a little bit more contrast. So now that the leaf is done and the major mixed media part of the background is done, I want to make a border around the background, and I want to conserve my paper, so I just cut out 4 strips of this beautiful brown paper, and this is the Prima Pumpkin and Spice collection. And as you could see, I'm just cutting 45-degree angles in the corners, and I do that by just folding in the corner from top to the bottom, and then it makes a 45-degree angle. You only have to do it on 2 of the pieces just to make it look like a frame around the back of the paper. And this way, if you don't have a whole piece of paper to gut, you can do this instead with just a few strips of the paper that you want to use. And now my cutter is off camera, but I just cut that piece of bluish paper to size. And now I'm distressing the edges of that as well with my scissors. I love the look that distressing gives to the paper. Sometimes I find I have to put a lot of thought into how I'm ripping the edges because I don't want it to look too regular. I don't want to make a little indent like every 3 inches or every 2 inches. I want it to look really random, and sometimes it's a little bit harder to make something look random, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but it is sometimes harder to make things look random. So I just spread a little bit of white gesso around the border of where the leaf is going to be. And again, that's to add contrast so that the leaf will pop off the page. And adding a few more white splatters, one of my favorite techniques. And then I thought it would probably be best to just add a little bit of that aged mahogany around all the edges. So now finally, I have the leaf done, I have the background done, and I'm attaching the leaf to the background. Just getting it in just the right place. And I'm going to be using this picture of my dog Jackson. And we got Jackson, I can't believe it's been 3 years, but we got him 3 years ago. And he was from a animal rescue. And when we looked at him, we went to the rescue and we asked to see him. They had pictures of all the dogs and, all the information about the dogs. And we thought that he would be a good match for us. And he was so timid and so scared of everybody. They made us sit down in the yard where they brought the dogs out, and we had to sit so he wouldn't be afraid of us, and he really didn't want to come over to us, but he finally, toward the end, he came over and just like licked my daughter's hand, and that was it. She knew that that was the dog she wanted. So Jackson took him a long time to get over his shyness, and but he's come around, and now he's a perfectly outgoing, happy little boy. So we're happy to have him. So now that I have everything down, I'm just seeing where to put all the flowers. These are Prima flowers. They're also included in the kit. And I'm just trying to balance, not necessarily in number, but in color, the colors that are on each side. And this is one of the die cuts, and I cut the white border off. On some of the die cuts, I cut the white border off, but on others, I'm happy to have it. So it's not too much work to fussy cut out a little bit of the border, so I'm fine with that. And now I'm working on an additional cluster in the lower right. That's going to have my title, which is Fall Leaves. I like the idea of having some floating leaves in the background, just to bring something into the background, an image into the background, and then to balance it with the lower right corner. I do seem to, in my mind, go to a diagonal pattern. No matter what else is going on the page, I do like to have a diagonal pattern from one corner to the other in a lot of my pages, not all of them. And you get 3 packs of flowers in this kit, so there's plenty of flowers to move around. You also get chipboard. So one of those scarves that you can see on the right and one on the left, the one on the right is a chipboard scarf, and the one on the left is from the ephemera pack or the die cut pack. So there's plenty of embellishments in this kit to use on lots of layouts. And here's a pine cone that I'm fussy cutting out of one of the papers. There's a lot of images to fussy cut. So if you run out of something in the ephemera or in the chipboard, I found there was always something I could fussy cut out to balance it out, or to use another one of those somewhere on my page. So I just spent a lot of time rearranging everything. Here I'm trying to balance the colors. You could see that I had 2 of those dark peach or orange flowers on one side, and I decided to put 1 of each on either side. And now I'm cutting out this pumpkin that has flowers on top of it. So pretty. And everything is where I want it to be. So I'm using my heavy duty gel, and I attach everything down with the heavy duty, I think it's called heavy duty gel medium. It's Liquitex. And I do tend to move things around even after I'm done with the layout. So sometimes a little something will move even after the layout is done. And here I have a piece of plastic I use to cover my picture. You could see it's been used many times because I thought that some Heidi Swapp Color Shining Gold would be a good addition to the page. And so I'm just sprinkling that all around. And I don't mind where it goes as long as it doesn't go on my photo. And I didn't include it because it takes a long time to emboss, but I had die cut some leaves out of white paper, and I embossed them in rose gold. And at the same time, I also embossed the title that says leaves on the bottom. So those are all heat embossed, again, using a rose gold heat embossing powder. And at this point, everything is pretty much where I want it to be. I'm just adding some last additions. I decided that I didn't like the way the top of that leaf, it was shorter than the other points on the leaf. I wanted that to be taller, so I just cut a little piece of scrap paper out and just tried to make it blend in, and I think it blends in pretty well. And here I am using the heavy duty gel medium to attach down the leaves and the title. And now I'm just really adding the final touches to the layout. And looking at that photo again, I'm remembering how Jackson used to jump up on the table that's on our porch, and there he is standing on the table. He doesn't do that anymore, which is a good thing because my husband wasn't too happy about that. So now I'm adding just the last little touches, those leaves up on top, and the layout is complete. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you'll check out all the beautiful kits on the My Creative Scrapbook website. And I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you will give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and I hope you'll consider subscribing. And I want to say thank you to my current subscribers, and thank you to everybody for watching. Have a great day, everybody, and I hope to see everybody again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.